Hello, everyone. This is Shanna Kramer with Creatively Uncorked, bringing you this week's Creative Box Live painting, The Blue Butterfly. This is an intermediate painting of July 2021. This is the second week in July. And here is our pre-sketch canvas. You should have already traced from your traceable. And another thing that I did was just give the outline, the black outline on that butterfly, just went over it a little bit with a Sharpie, and that's going to help me be able to see those lines even after I paint over them. Well, how are you today? I have been just sweating, holy cow. So I don't know what it's like where you are, but right now I'm in Minnesota and it is 97 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know all of you that are down in Arizona and the warmer places, you're probably thinking, ha, you don't even know what hot is. And that may be true. But it is hot. 97 is hot. All right, I'm getting a few paint colors out here. I've got yellow, turquoise, white, or blue, and then I'll go with a little touch of white for now. I won't be adding any black yet. And I don't think we're using red at all for this painting. So these are all the colors that you got with your Creative Box Live kit this month. And we have some fun techniques to learn. This one, we have this fun little background. Let's take a look at the original. So that fun background that we have there, that is going to be, it's kind of yellows and whites, and it fades into greens, which is a combination of turquoise and blue. And then it gets down to a darker blue at the bottom. That one is a super fun technique where we use just a paper towel. A couple of other tools that we'll be using today. Of course, you should have your water cup by now. You should have a paper towel to wipe your paintbrush on, and a couple of paint brushes. The paint brushes that I have picked out for this painting were the large flat, the medium or small filbert, and a small round. That's it. That's all we need for this. Oh, and a paper towel. So I'll set my brushes aside, Sharpie aside, go back to that paper towel, dunk in a little tiny bit of water here, crumple it up and squeeze it out. So it's just a damp, crumpled paper towel, like so. Okay, so now I'll start picking up my paint. This paper towel is now my paintbrush. Okay, picking up a little yellow, a little white, and heading on up to the top of that canvas. Give it some smudges. I'm just kind of smudging and rotating at the same time, just to kind of get some nice variation in that background. You can also do this by, scribbling in some circles. And if you've painted with me before, you've probably painted circle scribbles, or at least scribbles. Any kind of scribble, because scribble painting is fun. And I want to make sure that this background is covered. I don't need to paint over that butterfly, but I do want to paint right up to the edges of it. So it's better to paint over the edges than to not get close enough to them. All right, so I've got my yellow all over the place now. Looking pretty darn good. And let's hit into some of that turquoise. So now I'm taking a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of yellow, and it makes a super, super bright spring green. Oh, I just love it. What a happy green. Trying a couple of different textures here. You can tap, 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 or twist. Or just do your circle scribbles, whichever you prefer. Just bringing some of that green down a little closer to the bottom. And then the last color I'll bring in will be some of this blue. So I'm just dipping a new corner of that paper towel into the blue. There, we'll get that bottom covered and then start blending it in. So we'll just tap it and blend that out into the turquoise a little bit, into that green. Nice, lovely. A little more blue. Okay, I'll let this go for now, and we can always add another layer if we feel like it. But we do still have some grass and a few other textures that we're going to be adding here. So I'll just set this aside, or actually I'm going to throw it away so I don't make a mess of anything else. All right, so there is our background. That is going to be slowly drying, but we really don't have to wait for it to dry. We can just go right on ahead and move into our next step, which is going to be adding some dandelions. I'll just show you. I have the original right here. And all of these little fluffy dots, these are all going to be dandelions. We have a couple of big dandelions with all the detail. A few more little circle dots, and then look at all these little dandelion wishes blowing in the wind. Those are fun too. So we have a lot of little fun details to add into this painting. So we'll go ahead and pick up our big flat brush. Okay, I'll start out by always swishing it in the water, and then I'll come over and pick up some white paint. Now this will be kind of thinned out because there's so much water in the brush, so it'll be a slightly thinned out white paint, which is good. That's what we want. And I can still kind of see my lines through, so I know where to put my big puffy dandelions. All right, I'll do that one more time and try to be a little more careful about showing you, because I know I put my hand right in the way. Okay, so I'll tilt it up a little so you can get a good angle. You're putting the brush straight down onto the canvas. Press it down and give it a twist. We've done this technique before with moons and suns. This is kind of a pretty reliable way to do a circle, but I kind of want that circle to be a little bigger than my brush can make, so I'm just kind of moving it around and dropping some of that white paint in there. Another one. And one more big giant one. And then we'll move on to some of the smaller dandelions. Fun, right? It's fun to learn new techniques. So we can do a few more. I'll just pick up a little bit more white, kind of up in the sky. I'll do a little one over there. See, I've got a little too much green on my brush, I think, because it's kind of dropping it everywhere. It's fine for now. I won't worry too much about it. Okay, so now that I'm getting up into the sky, now we'll clean my brush. Okay, and then pick up a little bit more white again, and this time it should let some of the yellow show through, where here it was dropping in some green, and I want to see a little bit more of the background color than that. Looks a little unnatural to have green dandelions floating in the sky. All right, I'll put that one down, that brush down, and then I'll move on to my smaller filbert brush. It's probably the medium filbert brush that you have in your pack. I'd guess it's about 1/4 of an inch if you are working with your own brushes. And this is going to give me some tiny little circles. Just give it a little spin. Press your brush down and spin. This part really doesn't take too long. Just remember that when you start working up into the sky, to clean your brush again first. Yeah, I know I'm putting my hands right in the way, but you've seen the technique already. You just press your brush down and twist. Brush down and twist. Brush down and twist. See? Nice and easy. All right. I think we can go ahead and start making some polka dots now. So for the polka dots, I'll just take my smaller filbert brush here and mix some white with some water. I'm going to need to thin it out pretty darn well. So right here you can see I have this, if you can tell how liquidy this is. Pretty darn thin, right? It's not dripping off the brush, but it's pretty runny. Okay, I'll leave that paint there. Flip the brush over, and we're going to use the handle. Dip that handle into that really wet paint, white paint that you made, and dot dot dot. I'll try to tilt my brush here so you can see what I'm doing. And just follow a pattern. Just kind of imagine a path of when you blow in a dandelion, it all kind of flows in kind of some direction, and we're making the dots showing that direction right now. So we'll do a couple of dots. Don't worry if this part takes a while, just enjoy the process, have fun with it. Dots are fun too. You get different size dots if you just load up the back of your brush once and then dot. Just keep right on going. Then you'll get a few different size dots, some variation in there. And we'll do some dots on the other side over here too. Just dot. I know, this part's going to probably take you the longest of any part of this painting, and that's okay. Maybe you paint while you're listening to music, maybe you paint while you're watching TV or have something else going on. You can just listen away and make some dots. We can also add color variations into these dots, which I will be doing, especially some of these lower dots down here. I'll add some yellow. I do want to keep these bright and light because they're wishes, and I don't think the wishes should be too dark and heavy. So I'm mixing some yellow now into that watery white. So it's not a real pure yellow, it's still a bright yellow. And just coming down into the greenish, the bluish background part and adding some yellow dots. It's just nice to have a little bit of variety. There. I think that is plenty good variety. So let's take a look back over at the original again. And you'll have to excuse my mess here because I sketched all this out with pencil ahead of time and yep, oh well. So we've got these dots around the dandelions, and that just makes those a lot more fun and interesting and kind of tells you where those wishes are coming from that are floating in the sky. So we'll go ahead and do that then. We still have some watery white mixed up, and you can go ahead and mix up more anytime you need to. And wherever my dandelions are, I'm just putting dot all around the edge. So these are my white edge dots. And you make as many of these as you want. There are only the 4 dandelions that have the edge dots. The great big important dandelions, those will have the dots. Everything else is just a background dot. What's the rule with being a center of attention? If everything is important, nothing is important. So you have to choose what's going to be important in your painting. There can be one star of the show and then supporting cast. So in this case, the butterfly is the star of the show. The 4 dandelions are the supporting cast, and everything else is just background extras. Woo! Holy heckin' cow. All right. Oopsie doopsies. So this here is actually why, you gotta mix your paint really thin. Look at what I just did there. What a giant honkin' glob of paint. All right. Okay. So I'll take some more water in here and make sure I have enough of that white mixed up. Mix it well, don't leave globs. It's just gonna mess with you later. And then I'll water down some of this yellow over here. just to make sure I have some when I need it. Also, I'm going to take some of this green and blue combo and mix some water in there, because I don't know if you noticed it, but the stem of that dandelion is going to be blue and turquoise, and it does need to be thin. More water. Okay. All right. Now we're set. So now I'm back to the white again and the edge dots. And acrylic paint is nice and forgiving. There's not a lot that you can't fix. I mean, if you totally don't like your painting at all, you can do what I do and just paint over it again. It's a perfectly good canvas. Why not reuse it? And if you want to paint over it again and you want to bring it back to white, I'd say don't worry too seriously about getting it back to perfect, pristine white, because any colors that you have, you just put a layer of white over it quickly, and any textures that are showing through, any colors that are showing through your white, they're just going to add some dimension and character to the painting that you paint over the top of it. So don't really get too uptight about how the state of the canvas when I do a new painting over it. It's just a little bit more interesting next time, that's all. Trying to avoid those big globs this time. So if you're like me and not made out of patience and just trying to get all the dots on there at once, slow down, breathe, take your time, and put your dots where the dots go. All right, now I'm taking this dark blue-green combination and dotting that around the center. Yeah, the center of each dandelion. There's not the stem yet, but this is where the stem is going to go. Right, that is my blue for the centers. And then I'll also go back and just get a little touch of yellow. And this is getting dotted between the blue and the white. Closer to the white though. We're just getting a little color variation into our dandelions here. Maybe the colors are the wish. Who knows? I don't want to go too overboard with the yellow. I just want to make sure it's mostly white with a little bit of color variation. All right. Okay, so that is looking pretty darn good. We've got all of our dots, we've got our dandelions, we have some stems and grass to add later, that's fine. And we can fill in our butterfly now. This should be dry up the top, dry enough to fill in a butterfly. All right, I'm going to switch back to my larger brush. Take some blue, just plain blue. I'm starting at the outside edges and bringing that color in. This is going to take a couple of layers. If you're using the paint that came with your box this month, this paint is a little bit thinner than the paint you've received in the past. So if you have some of your phthalo blue from the past boxes, use that instead. It's going to be a more beautiful true blue. Especially when you're mixing it with that tiny amount of white. Okay, so this is blue now, so I'm going to let it go. The next layer of blue, I will also add white to it, but for now I just want that background blue. Ooh, not that. See, just got a little bit of dot of blue outside the lines. All right, so now I have my blue and my butterfly. all my dots, all my background. So at this point, we'll want to take a break and let it dry. And in my case, I'm going to take a break and blow dry it. So if you want to just hit pause and then come back when you're ready. All right, here we are. Background is dry. One thing I see that I want to make an adjustment on is I have my blue down at the bottom, which is not very dark, and I think I'd like to punch that up a little and make it a little bit darker. So I'm going back to my bigger brush and taking some of this blue, and I'm just doing some crisscrosses around the bottom. If you want to go back to a paper towel and do the paper towel method, you are more than welcome to. I'm sure that would look great. But I threw my paper towel away. I still have my paintbrush, so that's what I'm using. You guys read any good books lately? I'm always running out of books, so if you ever have any suggestions for anything good, let me know. I get a lot of my painting inspiration actually from books, so anything new and interesting and good, yeah, sign me up for some of that. All right, so let's see. So we'll move on to some of this green now. And the green I know isn't really dark, but I just kind of want to blend it a little bit if I can. So I'll blend some of that blue into that green. And I'm back to finger painting again. That's okay. Finger painting is fine. It's non-toxic paint, so we can do what we want with it. Well, if you got it from Creatively Uncorked, it's non-toxic. If this is your own paint, well, you just have to read the label. Well, now, that seems a little better. I've lost some dots, but that's okay. I can bring the dots back if I want to later. All right, let's see. I have some grass to add in. I'm going to need a little bit more yellow here. My yellow is starting to run out. Okay, so let's see. Let's do that big grass first, and then the stems. So for the grass, we have green, of course. So our turquoise and our yellow are going to be the bright green. And I'll just start up here. I know it's hard to see, but all I'm doing is I'm leading with the skinny edge, and I'm putting my brush down right on the canvas. And light pressure at first, right under that butterfly, and then more pressure toward the bottom. And that's how you get from thin to thick. But wait, there's more. So now I'm just picking up some blue, didn't clean the brush, just went right into the blue. And now I'm adding a shadow side to that grass. There, see? All right, so now we have some grass with a sunlit side and a shadow side. Now I will take my dark blue again, mix with a little green. Same color that we used for the center of the dandelions. And let's see, which way are these going? So this one. Oh, I think there should have been another brighter one here. So I'll take this one. I guess there were 5. Okay. So I'm just starting in the center of those dandelions, just using the skinny edge of my brush. There. Just to pull down a little bit of a stem. And yeah, sure, they're supposed to be green, but I also wanted them darker than everything else, which means I have to add blue. So now they're more blue. That's okay. Back to the small filbert and the handle. So I'm going to pick up some of that dot color again, the center of the dot color, same as the stem color, just dot around the stem. Okay, perfect, lovely, wonderful. Take a little bit of yellow, a couple of dots around that thing. Yeah, all I'm doing is just making one more dandelion, big dandelion, supporting cast dandelion. Okay, that is looking pretty darn spectacularly fantastic, don't you think? I think I like it. So if you want to add any more dots at this point, you can go ahead and dot away. I think I won't though. I think I'm going to go ahead and finish my butterfly. So I've got a little bit of black to add and to redo that blue one more time. So back to my big brush. Rinse it out. Okay, I'm trying to dry it out now. Doesn't have to be super dry, but dry enough. Okay, and then I'm going right back over that butterfly again, over the Sharpie and everything. This blue's a lot darker this time, isn't it? Gonna build up in layers if you have thin paint or transparent paint. Okay, so I can just barely see the lines through this now. Like almost not at all. That's why I wasn't too worried about adding so much Sharpie. So now I'll just pick up some white. Starting at the tips of the butterfly wings. And pulling toward the body. Okay, when you're done with one wing, stop, clean the brush, pick up some more white. Got to do this while the blue paint is still wet. Okay, bottom wing. I'm just pulling that toward the body. Wipe off the brush. I guess I'm not cleaning it with water, but do wipe out the brush. Right, now I'm doing the front wings. starting at the edges of the wings. Whenever you start to pick up too much blue, start over, wipe your brush off, pick up some white. And you'll probably need to do that kind of a lot because your blue should still be pretty wet when you do this. That's how you get that blend. Another trick to making a good blend is stop messing with it, put the color down, stop and walk away. Okay? Stop messing with it or it's going to all get over blended and get bland, and we don't want that. All right, so we have the dandelion, or I'm not, the butterfly body. We have the butterfly body that we can color in. He's got a little black body. And then we've got those wings. So while you're waiting for those wings to dry, you can either go ahead and add some more dots to your painting because they're fun, or blow dry. Okay, that was our second dry break, and let's move on. So one thing that I'm noticing now that I've taken a step back from it is I'd like to have a lot more white around these dandelions. So I'm just taking a little more white, just dropping that on in. I want it to be really, really bright. So I'm just going to punch up a few different areas here, just around those big dandelions. And yes, I have 5 of them now. You make as many as you want. Big, bright blotches. So this white, by the way, right now it looks really, really bright, but as it dries, it will fade a little bit and dry a little darker. All acrylic paints dry darker. All watercolors dry lighter. Maybe we'll try this one in watercolor too. Let me know. What do you think? Do you want to try this one in watercolor? It'd be a lot more challenging than acrylic, but I'd be happy to do it. Ooh, especially now that I have my home studio set up. It's been kind of a work, wow, a work in progress over the last couple of months while we've been moving out of the studio. Holy cow. So the move is complete. We are officially 100% out of the studio, and we are fully online and on the road, which is pretty exciting. On the road means we can come and paint with you. Yes, even in Arizona. Definitely in North Dakota, Minnesota. All right, there's some nice bright white sparklies. Ew, you know what? This one has too much yellow. See if I can cover that up. There. Better? Yeah. All right. Clean that brush a little bit there. Moving on now to the last brush, the small round. Okay, and also using that last color of paint that we haven't touched yet, black. I know this is the same bottle that you have, but that's okay. It's still black. All right, I'm going to dunk my brush in some water and mix in a little bit of water with this black just to thin it out. Okay, now avoid sticking your hands in wet paint. And just gonna go right, whoopsies. Paint it like you mean it. Especially if your hands have a tendency to wiggle and wobble. I'm just doing a little wiggle wobble wave. Okay, and how far do we have to go with that black? Let's take a look. All right, so we don't have to fill in all in here, just the outside tips. Okay, that's easy enough. Same thing with this top back wing. Just do the same little wiggle along the edge. And notice I am thinning out my black paint here every time I'm picking up water and mixing up a new little bit of black paint. And we'll come back here and right along. See those back wings there? Give them a little wave. And there. Well, I think that's looking pretty darn good. Could have probably added a little bit more white to those wings, but I'm not going to mess with it now. Still thinning out the black. I'll do the little body. Boop, little tail. Little head, boop. And he's gonna need some little legs. So here's where you can cheat if you want to. Some little antennas. Oh, look at that. Little butterfly legs. Huh. How about that? Isn't that way easier than doing it with a paintbrush? All right, what do you think? Are there any other final touches that we want to be adding to this, or do you think we should leave it alone? I'm kind of thinking we're good. I think we should leave it alone. So here we are with our first intermediate painting of the month, Blue Butterfly, and I will see you next week.